This week, we are yet again doing another Lunchbox Reviews, and we are going to be talking about the 4th episode of Wandavision that came out just this past Friday. And I am joined by the lovely Michelle and Lew. And sadly, we're missing Alex this week. He's not feeling so great, so drop him a get well soon in the comments and send him good vibes. So let's hop right into it. This week's episode of WandaVision. So we're going to start off by just saying whether or not we like the episode and whether that changed any of our opinions of whether or not we like the overall show. Does anyone want to start us off?
Yeah, I can start off. This so far is my favorite episode out of all of it. It makes episode 1 and 2 even better now, because you know how I wasn't really a big fan of episode 1 and 2, but then episode 3 came and sort of liked it more, and then this episode came out and it's my favorite because of the fact that the way it was treated. I was hoping to finally see what was going on in the other side, and this episode gave me that. And like some other shows, I think maybe Lost has done it, Back to the Future for sure, where you see the other perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so meta that they were also just watching the shows like we were, like episode 1 to 3, and discussing it the way we were discussing it. So I thought that was really, really awesome and kind of smart. And I love it.
Cool.
I'll go next because I just echoing Lew. I agree. As we all know, I wasn't a huge fan of really the show, period, up to this point. This episode really, it did a lot for me. It helped a lot. The thing, I'm going to touch on the same thing Lew said, but the thing that for me is like the most amazing is now I feel like I'm unraveling the mystery with the characters. So seeing Jimmy Woo having that board of questions honestly reminds me of the notes I take each episode. And that like really, I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that question. Like, that's a good question. I didn't think of that. And, you know, I feel like we're really in the mystery with them. And I just think that's a really fun kind of new perspective on the show. And of course, this is the first episode. It really does feel like a Marvel thing. So for me, it feels good. It feels like what I was expecting. And I'm excited moving forward for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna disagree with the both of you. You both had like awesome points, and I do agree on some level. But for me, it was I didn't really like the episode, to be honest. I was kind of bored all the way through. The only exciting thing that happened was like getting to know that Geraldine was actually Monica. We're gonna spoil it anyway, so but yeah, like it was kind of just like I enjoyed a lot of the intrigue that they were building through episodes 1 to 3, and I kind of felt like they just let it all go all at once way too quickly. I felt like there could have been a little bit more room to kind of develop that level of suspense that you like really, really want to figure out what's going on, but like the show's not giving it to you yet. And yeah, they just let it go too quickly, and I was kind of like, like as you guys said, like it's nice that they're letting some of the answers go now. But yeah, I'm blanking. I wanted to say something else, but it'll come to me.
I do agree with you though, to a certain point, that it was really quick. Like it was like, holy shit, it's
yeah,
they're telling me shit now. I was like, what episode is this? But yeah, I still loved it.
I disagree.
But, yeah.
I actually straight up disagree with that. Yes, they answered a lot, but I think there's a lot of information in the things they didn't answer. So we'll kind of get into these more, but there are questions that I know we've brought up that maybe haven't been the most burning questions, but they've been purposely left unanswered. And I think that's where the rest of the show is going to go. It's going to go actually towards answering like these additional questions that haven't been the burning questions.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt that way at first. I was like, okay, that seems like a lot. And then one thing hit me that hadn't been answered. And I was like, oh, that's what the rest of the show is going to be, in my opinion. But we'll get to what that is and what I think that's going to be when we kind of talk about what happened in the episode.
Yeah, for sure. Like I agree with you there. Like obviously I know like not all of the answers are not all of the questions are answered yet, but it was, yeah, personally for me, too much at once. It doesn't mean that I don't like the show. I still really, really enjoy it, but it was almost kind of like, you know, they get all the supporting actors for that one episode and it's like only them. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, yeah, you guys are cool, but like, let's get back to the superheroes, please.
Let's get back to the whimsy.
Yeah, let's get back to the actual fun stuff. And like, yeah, it was too much explaining all at once. Okay, great. So let's do our rundown of the episode now. So we're going to talk about the opening sequence, which revealed a lot about what was happening, and very quickly we knew that it was kind of like the people were coming back from the blip. Does anyone want to contribute any sort of conspiracy theories, or what did they think?
Well, I don't know if I have any conspiracies yet.
Okay.
I have a bunch about this episode, but not yet. But the thing I thought was really notable, this is the first time we've seen this happen. So we've heard of the aftermath of people coming back from the blip. It was talked about in Spider-Man, where they're like, oh yeah, everyone's older and this and that. Everyone just like showed up randomly, da da da. And like we saw it a little bit. No, we saw people being snapped. We didn't see the blip. This is the first time we've seen it on film. And I like, even though I knew it was going to be like that, that is terrifying. Like the thought and the way they made it take place in a hospital was honestly like devastating. It felt like kind of like a gut punch for me, because I was just like thinking about all these extra characters that were appearing, and like there was the man who came back and he was looking for his wife, and I was just like, this is so much, because we've seen the blip and we've seen it happen to the Avengers and we've seen everyone come back and it's so great, and then we haven't really seen like the tragedy of the blip, which we really do see firsthand through Monica and her realization that her mother passed while she was gone. Right. And that to me was real, like that was really big. And I think they handled it relatively well, where like they threw it at us, they kind of like let it sit with us, and then they kind of moved forward from it. But I just thought that was really interesting, because I was curious how they were going to handle just like the fact that she's gone and she's missed so much, and what that's going to look like. And I thought that scene was spectacular. Like the second that scene ended, I was like, yep, I'm here, I'm in. This episode's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Like that scene, as you said, was handled really, really well. And I agree with essentially everything you said. Like like for me to imagine what would happen, like she was looking at her hand, like Monica was looking at her hand, like rematerializing. Like I would be like, what the actual like, where am I? What the just happened? Where's my, like she was definitely feeling all of these things, and also having to deal with like the craziness of everyone appearing in that hospital
at the same time.
Insane. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all of you, all of what you guys are saying. Like to me, that opening scene was really what got me into it. It was, I guess, to be honest, I think it's the best opening scene I've seen in a while. Like even if you really were listening to the when she started kind of going back, you hear the audio from when Captain Marvel was talking to her as a kid, as she sort of materialized back. And it's just, Michelle mentioned that we saw this before in Spider-Man, but they took a more humorous approach to it. Like people were playing basketball and all of a sudden the band just started showing up. This one was more of like a, I guess you would call it real life situation.
Yeah,
where the panic and the chaos was just going on. And I thought it was really powerful stuff, like for that opening sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's nice that that scene was there to kind of create a contrast. Like it shouldn't kind of be taken so lightly. Like, as you said, like in Spider-Man, people just like showed up and everything was A-okay. But like here, it's like, yeah, this is what would be closer to a real life situation. Like there would be chaos and panic, as you said. So actually this is a kind of a good segue, because in the first scene we see someone rematerializing and we soon find out that she's Monica Rambeau of S.W.O.R.D. So what did you guys think of that, I guess that reveal?
Well, we kind of discussed it last week as a thing that was going to happen. So this was just like the validation of, okay, this is how it kind of plays into it. And it fully explained how, like, who Sword is, what Sword is, how she's part of Sword, because we weren't too sure on what that was. And it was revealed that her mother is potentially one of the founders of Sword. She was definitely way high up in Sword. And then she goes back to the headquarters. And this is where my first conspiracy comes in. So I'm just going to go right into it.
Yes.
So she's talking to the new acting director, whose name I do not remember, but they're talking about like space travel and how they had this program for astronauts and how it hasn't been going very well.
I know where you're going with this.
Okay, you say it, because I know you probably want to say it. You say it.
No, it's okay. I might be wrong.
Okay, so my guess, based also on the colors of Sword, is Fantastic Four tie-in.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, that's like a little nugget. That could be a potential thing. So that was really exciting, just kind of hear them talk about that and what else could be going on, because they did talk a little bit about space and like all that before they revealed the fact that she's grounded and she only can do terrestrial missions right now. So it's a little hint that there's like things happening in space, which I think could be fantastic.
The only thing I'm gonna add to that is that the new director of Sword, whatever, it looks sketchy as I'm like,
oh, that
like 2 minutes in, I don't trust him already. It's like, yeah,
maybe because he's just a white.
You could have set up this whole thing with my number one Mephisto, but whatever. Yeah, he was just sketchy. That's all I can add.
There is a theory about that guy, and comment people watching, please correct me, because I have not watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but there's a bad guy in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. who shares the same last name as this dude.
Is it?
I don't remember.
The same actor? It's okay.
We'll get back to us later.
Moving on.
Yeah.
It'll come out soon. Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. Like, yeah. So next we're gonna talk about, okay, so Monica gets called down to New Jersey to see WTF is going on down there, and there she meets our good friend Randall Park,
Jimmy Woo,
who plays Jimmy Woo. Thoughts about that?
I want to celebrate Marvel's ability for a random callback. So this is super strange, but I don't know if you guys caught this. Jimmy Woo's little business card trick was the exact trick he was trying to get Ant-Man to teach him in Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I just watched the other day. So I saw that and I was like, oh, that's so fun. It's such like a tiny detail that I'm sure has no actual like relevance to anything else, but it's like, hey, if you're a Marvel fan and you like are pretty familiar with the films, like you'll enjoy this little nugget. And I just love the timing for me, because I literally just watched Ant-Man and the Wasp like a day before this episode, and I was like, oh, that's so fun. And I love him in that. I love him in general, so I'm thrilled that he's in this show now.
Awesome.
I really like that. See, I was just gonna mention that, so I'm like, yay, he finally learned a trick. And I like that because I guess of his experience with dealing with superpowered individuals, like he was, Scott Lang's babysitter, that he would be used in this sort of kind of event that's involved superpowered individuals. Yeah, I like that he's here on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Like, he's just such an endearing character. Michelle and I were talking before we were recording about how he always plays this character of just being so endearing, and you just want to love him. Like, he's so good. It's
impossible to hate him, kind of.
He's so cute and fun and just like innocent, and he's just chilling. Like, I don't know. I also really like his like brutal honesty, because there was one scene where like the director of Sword was like making fun of him, and he was just like, yeah, he just like rolling with it. And I just thought it was so funny. He's like, oh, are they missing you back at Quantico? He's like, Quantico? And he's like, no, like the baseball season's over, whatever.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
I love him.
It reminds me of like a middle-aged, like super sweet dad.
Yeah.
He reminds me of, this is going to be a weird one. He reminds me, I think it's on Reels or TikTok, but there's this like account and it's your Korean dad. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like just this wholesome man. It reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Like, come on, let's go to the store. And he's just like so wholesome. Yeah, he's so cute. I love it. I love
Jimmy
it so
Woo,
much.
wholesome FBI agent. That's it.
Yeah. It's just, I hope he stays safe, because I'm worried about a wholesome character in a show.
Yeah.
That's my concern.
So the whole idea of Westview, I would like to say, like, I don't follow the comics as closely as you guys. I'm just really watching for the art and the fun. But you know, through the old powers of making inferences and the power of deduction, I kind of felt like my hypothesis of, you know, Wanda's doing all of this, like she's creating this reality. It's slowly kind of seeming like, you know, my hypothesis is being proven true, because this town doesn't exist, which I just thought was like super weird, where the policemen were like, they couldn't see it, right? They couldn't see what the other two saw, like where it looked like fairly like ransacked and like broken down buildings. Could they see it, or am I?
They were just convinced that they're from Eastview. They're probably from Westview, but they were just convinced that Eastview. So Wanda, I guess her magic just kind of messed with everyone's mind
or something.
Yeah.
But could they not see the sign that literally just said Westview?
Westview. That was my favorite. Like, no, Westview doesn't exist, and the sign's literally right here. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Monica. It was like, so you're telling me a town called Westview, population blah blah blah, doesn't exist? Like the sign is right there.
Yeah,
like,
I was kind of confused about that. I was like, okay, so can they not see it, or like what's going on? Do they read Eastview even though it says West to the rest of us?
That's my guess. Well, I think like they kind of Jimmy and Monica had a little bit talked about it, that it's some type of selective amnesia for people who are outside of Westview. So I'm curious if like when these policemen like left,
did they
like suddenly they couldn't
read
remember. Yeah, they like couldn't remember what it was, because Jimmy was saying that his person who's in the witness protection program, all the people forget that they even exist.
Oh, okay.
Which is really interesting. So it affects people potentially very, very far out who have a connection to the place. And I know Jimmy and Monica were kind of like, why aren't we forgetting about it? And
I was just gonna mention that. Like they had like a feeling that why are we knowing this? Why do we know that it's there?
Right.
So interesting. And then of course our good old friend Geraldine, because now we're gonna call her Geraldine, sticks her hand in and gets sucked right in. And I'm like, girl, you should know better. Like, don't stick your hand into glowy things.
That's me. If I see one of those glowy things, I'm gonna poke my head in. That's what I'm gonna do.
No, I'd be the Jimmy Woo. I'd be like, no, Lew, come back.
Yeah,
like,
I'd be Jimmy in the
this is
sense
not
of
gonna
like,
kill me.
I'd be Jimmy in the sense of he's standing there being like, I know it doesn't want me in there. And that would be me. I'd be like, it doesn't like me. I'm gonna stay over here.
Yeah, for sure. I'd be a big puss bag in real life too. I'd be like, nope, I know out here is safe, so I'm gonna stay right here. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna talk about like Darcy Lewis. Like all the agents are there. Michelle, you look burning to go.
Well, I'm happy because one of my theories was a little bit of a similarity between the, what was it called, the convergence or whatever from Thor Dark World, and the way they'd shown this kind of shimmery thing in Westview. So in bringing in Darcy Lewis, to me that pretty much confirms like the similarities between them, because why else would you bring her in? So that was thumbs up for me, because I'm like, okay, my theory is, you know, mildly correct that she would show up. Like, she, correct me if I'm wrong, besides Jimmy Woo, she's the only other like Marvel person we've seen in other movies like show up in the show.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. Yeah.
So again, a tie to the big Marvel universe, and we haven't seen her, I don't think, since Dark World. Like, I'm not fully caught up on all the movies in my rewatch, but I haven't seen her.
No,
like,
she hasn't appeared since Dark World. No, sorry.
So,
yeah, Dark World.
Yeah. In that time, of course, she did become a doctor of astrophysics. So good for her. She like finished her degree and stopped being an intern. I'm a little disappointed her little intern boyfriend from Dark World wasn't there, because he's really entertaining. But yeah, so she shows up and she hops right to it, doing some science, and pretty much immediately finds a radio frequency. And I want to point this out, because I don't know if I'm the only one who thought this, but she found the radio frequency, she tuned in, and it was partway through episode 1. In my mind, that infers that there are previous episodes. Like, our episode 1 wasn't the first episode. And I just think that's really interesting as well, right? Because she tuned in progress, and who knows how long it's been going, because it's been going at least 24 hours before, because 24 hours before is when Monica / Geraldine disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So how many episodes are we on? Like, what season are we on of WandaVision, actually?
Cool.
Yeah.
And even the like the actual footage when they were looking at them, that means we're still missing a bunch of parts from the episodes. So there could be more than the episodes that we saw, right? But the only notes I actually wrote when we see Darcy again is that they also just don't know what's going on, because like Darcy was talking to everyone in the truck. What field are you in? And then you, this guy, that guy. So yeah, they have no idea what's going on, and basically they need everyone's brains.
Yeah. Well, we find out at the end of the episode that when Geraldine or Monica gets spat back out, that it's all because of Wanda, right? So I'm interested to see like why she did this, which I hope will come in the later episodes. Not too fast, please. But yeah, I'm sure that'll be answered pretty soon.
5 more episodes.
Is there 5 more?
Ooh, like almost halfway.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Okay, so we already kind of talked about the show WandaVision, because we see Jimmy Woo and Darcy Lewis tuning in, and Darcy Lewis is very into the show and very invested, which I thought was really cute, a little bit of whimsy there. So we're going to talk about Agent Franklin now, or the beekeeper, who we see kind of crawling in and losing his tether to our reality. Thoughts? Comments?
Well, see, this is where I think that I still can't remember his name, but the new director dude has like other motives, because not everybody knew that the beekeeper was going in there, and then there was like many teams, but he seemed to have his hand on everything, so he knows more than he's letting on. And another theory I have is like, it's dumb, but when he goes down, that all the magic is coming from below, which is, you know, where hell is. Here I go again. God damn it, Mephisto.
Okay, so I did a little reading, because like it's me and I do a Google. And just for you, Lew, there were at least 6 potential references to Mephisto in this episode. Some of the ones I read were like really long shot. Like the fact that the police officers said they were from Eastview. There's some like connection to the east segment of hell or some crap that makes it about Mephisto. But just so you know, like the internet is with you on really wanting it to be Mephisto. Like, my goodness, it was all over. Like anything I read for this episode, it was like talking about him. So,
which is actually like the most obvious thing, which may be wrong because it's so obvious. Like even the hexagons are everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Lew is right, because then a little bit of my hypothesis that I made last week would also tie into it when I said that like she's not fully in control, and it still seems like there's things that like the pregnancy, like we were talking about, like she's not fully in control of this reality that she's building. But who knows? We will find out soon if Mephisto has anything to do with it.
Well, I'm just gonna say, add one more thing in here before we move on. In watching the episodes, like in Darcy and Jimmy watching the episodes, we do see a couple different interesting things that I wanted to point out. Number one, it's heavily edited compared to what we've seen. Number two, the commercials still exist. So that adds to my theory that the commercials are not for us, but for them, those viewers. So I thought that was really interesting, especially because the Stark toaster commercial came right at a moment when they were interfering. It was right after the snapping of the glass in Dottie's hand. You see it cut to, so it could be just Wanda's way of being like, hold on, pause while I like readjust what's going on. So I thought that was really interesting. Then what they did, and it kind of brings an answer to what we had talked about last week of the we are all blank. Everyone in there actually does live in that town, and they've all been cast in the show. So the agents are slowly trying to identify every single person as like who they actually are, which they do a really, really good job of, except for one notable person that they're unable to identify. Did you catch who they were unable? Yeah.
Is it Agnes?
So
okay.
Yeah, it's Agnes.
Yeah.
They could not identify her. Her name's up there. They have no idea who she is, which again, kind of, I forget whose theory it was, but Agatha Harkness or whatever, And I think that could really indicate that she's pulling the strings because she doesn't belong there. Unless, alternate theory, we also don't know who the person in the witness protection program was.
Yeah. Who is this person?
Yeah. So there's that's kind of what I had said at the start of like our filming here. Like there's so many questions that aren't answered that now become more important. And I think that's the big one. That's like, who the heck is Agnes then if we know who everyone else is? And they're just like poor denizens of this town that are trapped there. And like she's willingly there, like coincidentally, like what's the sitch? So
also there was another person that was kind of missing
Not
from there,
identified.
which was Dottie.
Yeah.
So which leads to my other way off theory of maybe Dottie also being, maybe probably not, but I was thinking Clea with another sorceress that's friends with Mr. Doctor Strange.
And I thought she was Hydra, so like
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe they'd be able to identify her if she was Hydra. I don't know.
Well, the director dude, again, going back
Hayward is his name.
is the because we all know that Shield has been infiltrated by Hydra, right? What's to say that they haven't infiltrated Sword as well, because it seems like
so true.
When he saw Monica come back, it's like, this chick's here.
He's very
it's almost
quick
like,
to,
I'm gonna send you right away
job.
over there, so hopefully you die kind of vibes.
Maybe.
Do you think that one of the missing persons could be either Agnes or Dottie because they weren't mentioned as being able to be identified?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they would do the whole missing person and like talk about it as much if it didn't come into play in some regard. So I'd be surprised if it wasn't somebody that we've met. Even if just like slightly in passing, I'm not sure.
Okay. So a little while ago, you were talking about interference and the relationship to whenever that would happen, there would be a commercial. Speaking of interference, we see what came about because of Jimmy Woo speaking into the radio. Anyone want to share their thoughts about that?
I don't know if like seeing the radio from the other side really did anything at this point.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually not sure. I'm like, okay, yeah, that was kind of what we thought it was going to be. It was someone from the outside trying to contact her. The only part that I found kind of interesting was they had Darcy had mentioned that Wanda washes her dishes every single episode, so they were planning to contact her through the radio in her kitchen. I just find it really interesting that there happened to be a radio at this random like luncheon. So I don't know if somehow maybe Wanda does want to be contacted a little bit, and that's why there's a radio there. It just seemed very fortuitous that it would be right there.
What? People can't listen to music by the pool, Michelle? What is this?
I don't know. Just it was right there.
There were no Bluetooth speakers. There were radios.
True.
That was the only thing that I found weird.
I guess they can listen to music.
The only thing I found weird, because like you were mentioning, they were waiting for her to do the dishes in the kitchen, but for some reason they have her like by the pool, and that's where Jimmy Woo contacts her. So I thought that was just kind of weird.
Yeah. I literally have nothing to add because, like I said, this episode was super boring for me. I was like, yeah, okay, like that's what happened. Cool. Let's move on. Any more thoughts before we move on, or are we good? Okay. So we are coming near the end of our discussion. Again, we see the showdown between Monica and Wanda. Which honestly happened in the last episode, so I don't even know why we're talking about it. But does anyone have any thoughts about that?
So my only thing with that scene is just like for the artsy reasons, where again they start off from the TV with like the lines, and then all of a sudden it goes from like 4:3 to 16:9, and then it starts to get clearer, and I was just marveling at the technical aspect of it. But we all know, because we talked about last week, what is going on in that scene. Wanda's going crazy.
I think the only thing that scene adds is the actual exchange, like the verbal exchange between Wanda and Geraldine Monica at this point, because we didn't see what Wanda said previously besides like, who are you? And she notices the necklace. So in this case, she says, like, Geraldine responds with, I'm your neighbor. To which Wanda responds, you're not my neighbor, you're not my friend, you are a stranger and an outsider, and you are trespassing here. So I found that to be really interesting. So she obviously has a good sense of who's in the town and who truly belongs there. And I thought that was really interesting for her to call Monica, Geraldine, whatever, a trespasser, when like realistically, Wanda, you took over an entire town. You are a trespasser. But this person is trespassing in your like vision of what's going on. So,
was that a
yeah, I used that word on purpose.
I wanted to say something before we moved on. Maybe I'm a little bit slow, but it seemed like Monica, like she wanted to say something about the real world, but she couldn't. She was, I felt like she didn't really want to say neighbor at the end of her sentence. I felt like she wanted to say more than that, but she couldn't. Again, that might just be just validation that, again, Wanda is controlling everything. She might have been trying to like stop it, I don't want to hear it, you know. So let's go back to Michelle's segue, where she very artfully dropped in the word vision, which happens to be one of the last scenes of this episode, where Wanda looks back at Vision and sees his head all in and shit. For me, when I saw that, my heart kind of like shattered. Like, really, they did a really excellent job of kind of taking you out of that entire illusion that they worked so hard to build up in the first 3 episodes, where everything was perfect, full of whimsy. She looked back and, you know, colorless, head crushed in, really sad. What were your thoughts?
To me, there was a sense of familiarity when she saw that right away. It's when she looks up and almost just looks down, it's like, oh shit, you're not supposed to look like that, which has me thinking, through magic, are you just reanimating Vision's dead body? Like, are you a dead robot right now?
I don't know if I have anything to add to that specifically, but the thing I will say is the last song. I don't know how familiar you are with
Voodoo Child.
Hendrix. Yeah. The lyrics for that song are extremely telling. Let me create an island for you. Let's just like, I wasted time with you in this world. Let's just create a new world. Like, it's literally explaining exactly what's happening. And I thought that was a really interesting choice. Especially because that song came out in 68 and technically we're in the 70s. So I was like, okay, that's like time period appropriate. I just thought that was really, really interesting, because we haven't heard too much music besides like, the only one I remember is freaking Yakety Yak from the first episode.
Yeah.
So this felt like a very poignant and very like intentional addition.
It was put there
for adding
on purpose.
Okay, so adding on to that, you know, I really do think that, as Lew said, like, she's just rematerializing Vision. Related to that, one of the lyrics in that song is like, if I don't meet you no more in this world, then I'll meet you in the next one, which is like doubly so sad. But yeah, that's what I wanted to add. That was a good song choice for sure, to kind of encapsulate everything that's happening.
But there was also something very small. I don't know if you guys would have noticed, because during the end scene where they both had the one kid each, and the song came in and they sat down. If you I was staring at Vision the whole time, and he stares at the camera. There's a moment there's like it's almost like, what are you gonna do now? And then he stares right at you. If you go back to that scene, you can see him stare right at you. And I'm like, so he also, other than being living dead, he kind of, I feel like, wants out of this. Like, he knows that there's something wrong.
Oh,
there's an awareness there for sure.
There is an awareness there.
I felt it initially when he, like, she had that whole moment of seeing him dead, and then he approached her. He's like, we don't have to be here anymore, we can leave.
Like, subtle hints.
If he was a construct completely within her control, he wouldn't suggest that. because she doesn't want to leave. She knows she can't. Do you know what I mean? So it felt like there's a piece there within him, whether it's somebody else controlling him, there's something in there that she doesn't have full control over. And I found that to be really interesting. So that final segment really hurt. I hurt for him in that segment.
I like that. Or maybe it's also like, maybe he's just fully dead and this is just his memory living on in her, kind of being the more rational voice to tell her to snap out of it, right? Because he would kind of be that.
Very true.
That's
he
so
becomes,
definitely sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
He becomes Wanda's
they
good
did
conscience.
They did hammer in the fact that he's dead.
Right.
Because when Darcy and Jimmy saw him, they're like, wait, isn't he dead?
Mm-hmm.
And like they really like made a point of saying that. And obviously we all knew that already, but I think in reinforcing it, there's some extra layer there that there's something really not right with the fact that he's there, obviously. So
yeah. Oh, well, we're kind of leaving our discussion on a little bit of a sad note. But we are done. That is our review for the 4th episode of WandaVision. Please like and subscribe to our channel, drop us a comment, let us know what you think about our crazy conspiracy theories, or help one of us or all of us to feel very validated about our crazy ramblings. Check our socials down below, and we will see you next week for our next review of WandaVision. Again, I am joined.
Sorry, before we really end that, we have the giveaway.
Oh, okay.
We have the Funko Pop giveaway. Vision's not here, but he will be. So Germ already basically told you how you are entered and how you could win. Just like, subscribe, and add a comment. And yeah, as you were, Germ.
I am joined by the lovely Lew and the lovely Michelle. We will see you all next week for our